Good afternoon, Spartans. Thank you for joining us for today's Professional Series webcast. We typically do these every second and fourth Thursday of the month with occasions to have special topics such as today's Learning Technology and the Maker Movement Curricular Connections for K-12 teachers. We're so excited to hear about the Maker Fair and about the experiences many of our Spartans had there. Today, we bring you Michele Schira Hagerman. Michele directs the graduate certificate programs in educational technology and online teaching and learning in the College of Education at MSU. She's passionate about helping teachers explore innovative practices that support student learning, especially when that learning involves language and technologies. She is a graduate of MSU's doctoral program in educational psychology and educational technology. You can learn more about the MAET program at http://edutech.msu.edu and about Michele's work at http://mschirahagerman.com, and I believe Michele will type those into the chat section for us. You can also follow her at mshagerman on Twitter and MAET. With Michele, we have Terrence O'Neill, who works as the entrepreneurship librarian at the Gas Business Library, and in that role supports innovation and entrepreneurship from across MSU. Since joining MSU Libraries last year, Terrence has become involved with exploring the role libraries play in the innovation process, including the possibilities of new technologies in supporting academic activity and new business formation. He's a graduate of the University of Michigan School of Information, where his studies focused on the interaction between Makerspaces and libraries. He will also put up his contact information in the chat room. We also have Jill Morningstar, who is the Education and Psychology Librarian at Michigan State University. As a liaison, she provides resources and services to students and faculty in the College of Education and the Department of Psychology, and also teaches information literacy instruction to undergraduate and graduate students. Jill is a graduate of the University of Michigan School of Information with a focus on professional development for K-12 educators. And I'll invite you, Jill, to put your contact information in the chat. I am Dave Isbell, the Assistant Director of Professional Alumni Enrichment for the MSU Alumni Association, and I'm so glad to host this, and I'm excited to hear what we have to say. With that, I will give you, Michele, the floor. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, David, for that great introduction. And hello, Spartans. Hello, everyone. I'm not sure how many of you are joining in today, but just so you know, it is a lovely day here on the campus of Michigan State University. I was just out at the MSU food truck earlier for lunch, and it was a perfect day to enjoy a little bit of outdoor time and to enjoy the organic student farm offerings today. So I don't know where you're joining us from, but just so you know, here on the campus, things are lush and beautiful and thriving. I am thrilled to be doing this webinar today with my colleagues from the MSU Libraries, Terrence O'Neill and Jill Morningstar. I'm also thrilled to welcome one of our Masters of Educational Technology students to the webinar as a presenter. Amanda McCarthy is a teacher, and she is also joining us today, and we're going to highlight a little bit of the work that Amanda has done as part of our program this summer in East Lansing. Amanda, would you like to say hello? Maybe even just in the chat, and provide your contact information.
Hello, thank you, Michele, for having me. Absolutely.
You're welcome, Amanda. Thanks. I can see also in the chat, David, I'm just going to say that Jill Rosenthal-Vinter is asking if it started and she can't hear anything. Maybe, David, you can help Jill. I'm not sure. Jill, can you hear us now? We just want to be sure before we start with the substantive content that everybody's able to hear us.
Okay, you could all hear me when I was talking, right?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Okay, Michael Press says yes, he can hear. Hi, Kayla. Hi, Dave. Great, this is super. I'm so thrilled to see you're all out there and you can hear us. It's great. Okay, so thanks, David, for helping Jill out. Just so you know, at the very top of the chat, we added a link to a list of resources that you might like to check out as we talk, because a lot of the material that we're going to talk about is sort of curated there for you in that document. So it's bit.ly/MSU Maker Resources, all one word. And you can go there. It's an open Google document, so you can see a lot of the resources that we refer to are located in that document. And I can actually repaste that now before we get started, just down at the bottom of the chat so that everybody can see it really readily. Okay, so let's get started. In this webinar, we're going to explain what we mean by the maker movement, especially in the context of schooling and libraries. We're going to provide you with ideas for teachers and school leaders that they could use to bring more making into their curricula and lots of firsthand insights from our maker work in the Masters of Educational Technology program and in the MSU libraries. And as I've noted already, we've provided you with some resources to kind of guide the work that you might do afterward. So here's a picture of me at a maker fair that I hosted with my colleagues Lee Grave Wolf and Punya Mishra at the McCall conference in Grand Rapids this spring. And a lot of people came to us and said, you know, what is this maker movement? And so I thought we would start by just laying out for you what we understand and how we interpret the maker movement. To my way of thinking, the maker movement is sort of the 21st century version of the spirit that has forever inspired people to come together to make things. It's about craftsmanship, it's about technology, it's about science, problem solving, all coming together with old and new materials for exploration, discovery, innovation, and the creation of things. I really think that the modern maker movement is focused on people coming together to make things, to share what they know, and to really play deeply with ideas. It's a powerful mode for learning, but it's important to note that it's not a new idea. These are ideas that have been articulated in the philosophies of educators and scholars such as Maria Montessori, John Dewey, the Reggio Emilia School of Early Childhood Education that comes out of Reggio Emilia in Italy. These are ideas that have been articulated by Seymour Papert, and we've provided you with a list of resources in that resources document of books and articles that you could use to explore some of the origins of these ideas. I also think it's important to note that in an age of schooling that has swung pretty far toward standardized testing and accountability in ways that we know have in many places restricted the types of activities that happen in classrooms, the maker movement offers an alternative perspective. It's one that emphasizes authentic inquiry, interdisciplinary construction of ideas, and problem solving. The whole point of making is that you don't really know where the project is going to go, and you have to embrace the uncertainty, the flexibility, the fun, definitely the fun. I think that's an important piece of it, of figuring things out as you go. And it really does emphasize collaboration, doing things with peers in ways that enable everyone to learn more and feel invested in an innovative activity. And I will add that the Common Core and U.S. government education initiatives are really focusing a lens on how we can, as educators, integrate experiences that support advanced problem-solving skills for our K-12 students. And I think that the maker movement is one really great philosophy to integrate into our classrooms. So in the Masters of Educational Technology program, we have a course called CP 811, Innovative Uses of Technology in Education, that integrates a maker curriculum. In the online version of the course, students purchase a maker kit, like the Makey kit that's shown in that last slide, actually. I'll go back to it for you. That's actually Amanda McCarthy's hand playing with the Makey kit. And the slide at the very top, on the top left, and at the bottom, actually the bottom left also, show you the Little Bits kit. So this is another kit that you could purchase and play with. And the students in our class online purchase one of these kits and they play around with the kit and they design a lesson for students that they could use in their professional context. And in our East Lansing hybrid and overseas programs, students work face-to-face in cohorts, which allow them to really explore making in collaborative and innovative ways using these tools and some other tools too. Here are some of those other materials that we include in our Maker curriculum. These could be sort of broadly considered sort of the DIY or the do-it-yourself materials. You can see a picture here of electric paint. Who knew that that existed, right? I mean, it's a pretty interesting thing. It conducts electricity. You can see that loop of copper wire is actually copper tape that you can use to create circuits on paper, and we're going to show you something, an activity that you could do using that material. You can see some Play-Doh, which does actually conduct electricity, and you can connect that to the Makey kit and do all kinds of fun things. And then at the bottom right, you can see a picture of some conductive thread and some LED lights and some felt squares that, again, you could use to fashion a really fun wearable circuit. So some really fun DIY materials there that we try to integrate into our curriculum. And I'm going to show you a couple of pictures, actually, of students. At the top, that's actually Amanda showing us how she created a badge using a felt square and an LED light connected to a battery. And Amanda's going to have a chance to talk about this activity a little bit later. And you can see down here at the bottom, students used some of that electric paint. They connected it up to copper tape and a battery and an LED light. The paint wasn't yet dry, so the light wasn't lighting up, but later on it did light up. So you can see that you're only limited by your imagination in terms of using these DIY materials in your classroom. We also, just to kind of highlight some of the other maker kinds of things that we explored as part of our curriculum this summer, we have been exploring 3D printing as a really exciting maker technology that has so many incredible implications for curriculum. There are several 3D printers on campus now. There's one in the College of Education, but there's also one in the College of Engineering and the College of Veterinary Medicine. And most importantly, this MakerBot is in the MSU library on the second floor, and we toured it. And I'm going to show you a couple of pictures, actually, of some things that our colleagues over in the library have printed. So here's a really fabulous flower that was printed on that MakerBot. And I thought everybody would appreciate this one, the Spartan head, which is pretty terrific. We were thinking maybe this would be a great prize to give out for something. So all of this sort of thinking about making in our Masters of Educational Technology program culminated in a maker fair that our students designed and hosted in the MSU libraries. And here's a picture of Terrence at the Maker Fair. And this idea really came to fruition because of this fantastic collaboration that we've developed with our colleagues over in the library. So there's Terrence, and there's Jill looking on at our student Lindsay Becker, who's exploring that little cup that was being printed off the MakerBot. Terrence.
So thank you very much, Michelle, for that wonderful introduction.
You're welcome.
And I'm just going to talk for a bit about how libraries, in this case and in many others, are a great point of collaboration for educators, for makers, and how they're really kind of almost ideally situated in many schools and many communities to host many of these events and be a place where these types of collaborations can happen. For the collaboration between MSU libraries and the Master of Arts in Education Technology, we knew that the workshops would be a lot of fun, but we also wanted to provide a space and provide a spot for an audience to easily engage with these technologies and with the educators. And these are things that libraries can easily provide. So it was a natural partnership, and in libraries across the country, maker activities are becoming more prevalent. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about why this makes so much sense and explore some different models for how this is happening, and hope that you listeners can look for your library as a place to find and create these unique and progressive offerings. So libraries in schools and all sorts of communities provide resources that are nimbly adaptable to different subjects. So with the library, you can imagine switching in some of these activities for story time in the same types of rooms, and borrowing technology resources like Makey kits or Arduino, in addition to books and CDs and other resources.
the infrastructure and expertise for running workshops and borrowing are already established and now easily adaptable to the maker movement. So here's an image from the website Instructables, which I really encourage you to check out, take a look at. And Instructables is chock full of activities that are easily adaptable to a library or school setting, and it's all how-to and what materials you need to do things such as 3D scanning and printing, 3D fractals, and other things that aren't quite as technology intensive too. So if you want to browse Instructables, and if you find something while we're still talking, feel free to share it in the box on the left in the chat room. And I'm going to talk about a couple examples of libraries that have really provided some interesting examples for incorporating maker activities into their offerings. So libraries are very flexible in their use. So great for collaborative, creative work. Some of you may have heard of Detroit's HYPE program offered through their public library. This program is great, nationally recognized, and it didn't require them to completely remake a space. They keep all of their maker activities in crates and just take them in and out for program drop-in times and workshops. So if you're thinking your institution can't remake or specifically design a space, that's okay. You can do akin to what we did with the MAET program at the library, just have it all boxed up and apply it to a room that you already have. HYPE does everything from web design to bike repair, and it's all cleaned up within, I don't know, a half hour, an hour each time. Another reason libraries and teachers both are becoming enthusiastic about the maker movement is the excitement generated by these activities. They're self-directed, intergenerational, and focused on engaging with and responding to practical challenges in a fun and curious way. This picture is from Westport, Connecticut, and they actually condensed some of their books into stacks kind of out of the center of their library's main room and built a
It sounds like we lost Terrence, but we will work on bringing him back. Give us a second here.
This is Michelle again. We can certainly return to Terrence's. While we're waiting, I mean, if there are any questions, I see Michael Press is typing. Oh, so is Terrence. We'd be happy to answer questions. Hi, Terrence, you're back. Great.
Hey, sorry for that, everybody.
No
but
problem.
I'm back.
Oh, super, you're back.
And if we do have questions, feel free to type them in as we go along, and we're happy to answer either, at the end or during the chat. And so this is Westport, Connecticut, and what they did was actually clear a space in the middle of their library. And there are still little nooks and crannies around the library for quiet reading and the like, but within this space they have some woodworking, they have a 3D printer that you can see right out in front, and what they found is that their teenagers are engaged. You can see 3 teenagers actually sitting around the 3D printer right there, but it also allows them a space and a set of activities where they can collaborate with people like retirees that have excellent, carpentry experience and kind of practical skills like that that are happy to come in and help run workshops and really like working with the youth as the youth enjoys working with them and learning from them. And it's just an example of how these kinds of spaces and activities can give excitement and bring in people that you might not already have active in your organization. And this is just another example of the types of collaboration. These are my friends Dana and Josh. They work at All Hands Active, which is a member-driven makerspace in Ann Arbor, and they travel throughout Wayne County, Washtenaw County, and go and do after-school programs specifically focused on this kind of hands-on technology education. So if you if you feel like, sorry once again, but I'm back, if you feel like your organization has the interest, has the space, but you might not have the technical expertise, a lot of times those people are going to be in your community already. And you've got these maker enthusiasts that love connecting with students, that love sharing their enthusiasm and their skill set, but might not have those direct connections. So I really encourage you to go out there and find these people. And they take on different shapes in different communities. In Jackson, they're recently just now launching their makerspace, and that's born out of a machinists guild. In your community, it might be knitters or people like Josh and Dana. It really just requires you to go out and meet people and see where the interest is in your community. So that's all, and now Jill's going to talk a little bit about the application specifically in school libraries, as I've been talking more about public libraries and different applications.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? I was told that I was too quiet earlier, so I want to make sure that you can hear me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about makerspaces in schools, and particularly school libraries. And so when I was in graduate school, I took a school library management course. And I remember we talked a lot about different maker activities, but the term makerspace, it didn't really come up at that point. But this was about the time when Raspberry Pis were coming out, and we were talking about badges and all those kinds of things. And so we actually had the opportunity to visit the Plymouth Canton Middle School. And their teacher librarian is, well, at the time was Rachel Goldberg. And she was just a fantastic teacher librarian. And she would host maker-like activities in the library after school. And so at the time, I think she bought a couple of Raspberry Pis, and she would let students experiment with them. She also had a group of students that would code in the library after class, and students would just kind of bring their own activities with them and their own materials, or she would try and provide these materials for them, and they would just, you know, work on projects and work on things together. And so she would then kind of hang these projects around the school. I think some of them did some zines and some posters, and so the school library was just seen as such a great environment and a safe environment for students to be creative and kind of, you know, if they were curious about something, then they could try it out. And, you know, occasionally if something didn't work out and maybe a project failed, that was okay too. They would, you know, either try it again or they would work on something else. And so Rachel just did such an excellent job at kind of cultivating that safe environment. And I just think that that's something that school libraries will hopefully start to do more. And so the year after I graduated, when Terrence graduated, he came here with this term makerspace. And I remember thinking, oh, that's what she did. That's what Rachel did. And so now we are seeing actual makerspaces in school libraries. And so the pictures that I have here, this is a before and after picture of, this would be a room that's kind of attached to the school library in Arizona. And the first picture is a before picture. And so they decided they wanted to turn that room into a computer lab. And so they spent $36,000 on Mac computers. And it turned out it wasn't the best environment. It wasn't exactly the best use of that room. And so they decided then to turn it into a makerspace. And so they spent $15,000, and that includes 2 MakerBots. And so they turned it into a makerspace instead. And so if you can see with the before and after pictures, the makerspace is clearly probably the more productive environment. And so you know, it was a lot cheaper to do this, and I think students would benefit more from this type of school library environment. And so I think we'll start to see this a lot more. I hope we do. And then I think, you know, it'll facilitate collaboration between teachers and teacher librarians who are in library school and learning about makerspaces too. So that's all I wanted to say about school library.
Thank you so much, Jill. That was terrific. I'm going to go to the next slide. And as I do so, I had a conversation not that long ago with a public librarian who was talking about making in public library spaces and just how powerful those experiences can be for people from the community coming together around a common interest or a common problem. And as Terrence said earlier, libraries can provide that infrastructure. They can provide the space for these kinds of projects to occur. And oftentimes, that's an issue, right? We need to find a space to do it. So there's a lot happening also in our community library. I would like to also transition now to focusing on particular projects that you might consider integrating as part of your classroom maker project or maker curriculum, or that you could even use in library spaces if you're part of a library community. This project, as a matter of fact, is Amanda McCarthy's project, and in a second, Amanda's going to talk a little bit about the rationale behind her work and the way that she sees this project working in an elementary or a middle school or even a high school classroom. I wanted to start, though, by introducing this project because many of our teachers, especially our online teachers who have been engaged with our online maker curriculum, really question the fit of making with the work that they're doing in their classroom. Sometimes it's really hard to build in these innovative projects when you're faced with so many other demands, constraints on time, and frankly, standards, curriculum standards that aren't necessarily explicitly focused on making per se. But we are introducing this idea because I think that it is a wonderful bridge for people new to making. And Amanda's going to talk a little bit about that in a second. This could generally sort of fall under the realm of what could be considered paper circuits. And we think it really resonates with a lot of educators because it starts with technology that everyone understands. Paper, sometimes a notebook. In this case, Amanda and her colleague Jeanette Hardy used a map. You could use name cards, drawings, that sort of thing, and integrate a circuit into that. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda now, and I'm going to mute myself. So Amanda, if you're there, would you mind explaining what this project was and why you did it?
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. Our project was designed, obviously, within our Masters of Education class in order to build a lesson. We were pretty free to do whatever we wanted, but my partner and I, Jeanette Hardy, also wanted to make it applicable into our work into the classroom environment. So with this project, we did use the paper maker. We used Chibitronics, actually. You'll see the sticker at the top is a product of theirs that you can order online. We wanted to make connections with where students originated from, their families, in order for them to use the library resources to build some knowledge about where their family originated from, the cultural environment. So we had the map set up in order to have students display where they were from by putting a sticker on their country, family originated from, or the state where they originated from. And we built on that books for them to do research on. With this in mind, it allowed them to make connections with other people in the room also, building that community aspect. They were able to talk about the things that they were learning about their culture. And also then we set up an area that was more holistic, where they could design a badge to represent their country. So this had spots and areas where you had the components, which were the batteries and the lights and the felt badges, and then the pins in order to pin them on. But we also had more creative spots like paper, stickers, we had wire the wire, colored wire strips so that they could bend them. We also had cut out pieces of paper, scissors, markers, crayons. We had some sewing, a little bit of needle and thread in an area, so they could just feel like they could create something from this knowledge that they've been building, or to represent who they were. Again, giving the students an opportunity to be able to explore their creative aspect in a way that may be familiar with them, and a way that they could maybe add on different components of the materials that we had there that they were not used to using. From then, it also generated a lot of talk among their peers, whether they were adult learners or student learners. There's a lot of conversations about, well, am I doing it right? How is it going to turn out? The great thing about this project is not only for the perspective of having a student create, but as a teacher and educator, I could watch the ways that the participants were creating. I could learn their learning styles or their habits. For example, I had a couple of adult learners that were in there. They were very set on creating. I mean, they took anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour creating a small badge that other learners maybe created in 5 or 10 minutes. So it was great to see how far and how detailed oriented some people were on this project. And again, great to see the exploration of figuring out not only how to be creative, but how to put the badge together for it to operate. Because of course we have positive and negative ends, and they had to go together with the battery. So for the younger learners, that was really exciting because they even expressed out loud their frustrations or their questioning about how it was going to work and how it would be put together. All in all, those types of things as a teacher also very valuable for me to be able to observe and see the learning styles, and for me to correct or utilize those pieces of observation in tweaking the lesson. I hope that helps and explains some of the aspects of it. I'm looking to see if there's any questions. I think there are.
Thanks,
so.
Amanda. Hopefully
No
there will
problem.
be,
Thank
though,
you.
because what I really love about this project is how interdisciplinary it is. And of course, you know, in the framework of the Masters of Educational Technology program, Amanda and her colleague Jeanette had an assignment that they had to do. But I mean, hopefully Julie will have some ideas, but I can really see applications to language arts, for instance, in this kind of paper circuitry. So for instance, you know, students represented their cultural heritage by creating a badge. So Amanda, of course, or actually Jeanette's family, who comes from Ireland, you know, they created a badge that was sort of Irish in its representation. But then you can imagine, right, a research project that follows from this, a family biography project that could follow from this, which would integrate English language arts expectations, you know, would integrate all kinds of Common Core expectations around, you know, engagement with resource, primary source documents, secondary source documents, of course, online research expectations that are part of the Common Core. So, I mean, I'm seeing all of these potential applications that would start from this sort of hands-on activity that integrates a circuit right onto a map or into a badge. Are there other ideas out there about how you could see this kind of activity being integrated?
Michelle, if I can add one more thing.
Of course, Amanda.
We did another project that was basically the same premise of trying to design a lesson, and we did use it in a language arts. We took a Common Core standard of sequencing, and we developed through the Little Bits kit that you showed earlier. We developed an activity where 3rd, 4th grade students would go in. They would basically chart how they were building the little bits, put down each step in order for their classmates to come in groups and work off of their sequencing, their writing portion of their sequencing, without ever seeing the kit itself, and see if they could recreate a kit based on their sequencing. So it is very applicable. We found a lot of areas where we could combine this into writing portions, to language arts, into science, and even to math.
I just thought that Julia has a terrific contribution. So she says she's new to the maker world. She'd love to start this in her school district as an after-school club. She says her son has a severe processing disorder, and she wonders if this would reach him and get him excited about school. I think there are so many possibilities here for helping students really connect with one another through the making, right, of things. And Amanda's and Jeanette's activity is so grounded, right, in materials that we're comfortable with, that we know. And I think for a child, Julia, like your son, I think it would be a wonderful way for him to play, to engage, and to do it as in a club kind of setting, I think is really, really. Any other thoughts?
One thing it makes me think of
Julie,
is in my
as
experience.
adult learners also, you know, it's some.
Sorry, let's do Terrence
Sorry.
and then Amanda.
Okay, great. One thing it makes me think of is in my experience with Makerspaces as an after-school activity, it can sound a little intimidating to some people, but there are so many easy points of entry for maker activities. Something as simple as wrapping presents can actually get kids really excited, and it can be that kind of space, especially in an after-school setting, where students that aren't feeling engaged or don't feel like they have direct agency in their schoolwork can still find a comfortable space to learn and really follow their interests while still building strong relationships with adults, both as librarians and teachers, and including parents as well. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Absolutely, and to speak to that, Terrence, is exactly it. We were excited as adult learners, and when we provided multiple materials for students to explore that, you included in students that may not be able to manipulate some of the larger or smaller materials because of hand-eye coordination, and then, like Michelle said, that having materials that they were familiar with, and then unfamiliar with them to explore. But the excitement is something that can't really be articulated as much as you can feel it. Go and build something, and that feeling, it just generates through the room. And then when you have others building with each other, no matter if they're building the same thing or different items, that energy just, it circulates, and then it builds upon each other. I mean, you had people that were putting their actual badges together with one another to see what they could create. We had students coming out of there with wristbands and bracelets at the end because they were just exploring with each other what they could do.
I'm going to just build actually on this conversation because I'd like to share another idea that's connected to a kit for people who might be interested in using a kit, and then really spend some time talking about the collaborative observations really that we've made programmatically about that collaboration and how important it is. So here's an idea for people interested in using maker kits. We see so many great and easy applications too. I will say, just to give a little plug to our students who are creating amazing ideas every day of the year, for those of you who really want to sort of keep up with new ideas, just follow that CP811 hashtag on Twitter. I'll just put it into the chat right now. Because our students are generating content every day, ideas about how to integrate DIY materials and also these maker kits. And in the Maker Resources document that I've also shared several times in the chat, that link, I've got a list of 3 terrific blog posts by recent MAET students that really focus on how to do things with a range of kits. Classrooms and libraries, if you're a technology integrator, lots of ideas there. So here's a Makey kit, and at the recent at the recent Maker Fair that we hosted this summer in the library, a couple of groups used this kit to do different things. And the one group actually that used the Makey kit hooked up each of those wires that you can see in this image to a kitchen utensil like a spoon or a fork or a spatula, or a piece of fruit like a banana or an apple. And all of those things actually will conduct electricity. I mean, it's not surprising that the utensils do, but sometimes it's really surprising to discover that a banana conducts electricity. So you can hook up those little clips to these random materials. And when you touch the item, you know, the spoon or the banana, the electricity from your body, if you're grounded, right, goes through the circuit, and you can actually control your computer mouse just like a peripheral device. So it can actually create a peripheral device. So in this activity, our students had groups collaborating to play video games such as Tetris. And you can see, actually in this image, a group of people together trying to build in Tetris. And you can imagine, right, how collaborative this activity was. And at first, I think people say, oh yeah, you know, it's like playing Tetris on bananas. But what's so compelling are the observations that our students made about the power of this kind of activity. So here's a statement by student Lindsay Becker. She said, at first, I was very focused on the product, and her product was to use that Makey kit to build, right, this experience for students. But then she said, being able to watch people go through the games and play them, it's not just teaching how to put circuits together, it was watching them collaborate, to learn to do that together. You really had to think about the best way to go about solving the situation with other people. And she said, I moved from seeing the product as important to seeing the process as more important. And for me, as a teacher educator, that was just so compelling and profound, because I think that the extent to which we can help our students move from focusing on getting things right toward exploration, building the foundational skills and mindsets around problem solving and collaboration, you know, the better this world is going to be, because, you know, every day we confront problems that we don't know the answer to. And I think that we really need to be equipping our students with these mindsets through, you know, this collaborative, enthusiastic play. Does anybody else have any thoughts about that in particular? I'll mute myself.
Michelle, our
No
collaborative.
Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Yes. Yeah. Our collaborative learning through play, as Lindsay expressed, we questioned it. You know, we questioned a lot of it to begin with, because of course we're in an education course and we're teachers, and we're wondering how us playing, or our play, was going to equate into lessons and teaching our students how to, you know, do science projects and math. But it was very powerful, that process of just elating and being able to drive that passion again through play. We miss it as adults. I mean, there's so many books written about it, and all the processes that it helps for you to work through when you're happier, when you're enjoying what you're doing. And it just brings back, as educators, that ability to understand the natural excitement and exploration. And I think that was the biggest takeaway, is that through that play, it really pushed us to explore more, to want to learn more about the process of how we created whatever activity we were doing, whether it be the Makey boards or Arduinos, how they worked. So it started us researching, and then if we can get that to our students, in order for them to enjoy and be interested, well, then we all know that's half the battle.
Amanda. This picture actually, I think, really highlights what you're talking about. This group in our program created a situation using the Makey Makey where people would come together to play musical instruments just by touching hands. So each of those little cords, essentially from the Makey Makey kit, was attached to some conductive thread, which was attached to a person. And by completing the circuit, through touching one another, there was a program connected to it that would play a different sound with every person being touched, which was pretty awesome. And really what we saw was how exciting this was for the participants and how people would persist through this experience. They weren't really sure what was going to happen, but we know how important motivation and excitement and that feeling of playfulness, really how important those things are to persistence through problem solving. And so I think that the maker ideology, so to speak, can really, really support the development of that kind of thinking in a classroom setting. This quote is actually from another one of our students, and he's talking about his experiences in observing participants in that human band that he and his colleagues created. He really said that it broke down barriers, that people went from being strangers to working together to do this thing together. For me, that's just a really powerful observation. Any comments, Jill or Terrence?
I was actually just about to comment on that because at first I remember being a little bit hesitant. I didn't want to participate in the drum. I was a little bit shy, I guess, because, I didn't really know that many people in the room, and I thought I don't want to embarrass myself, but then, I sat down and I started playing it, and it was really fun. And so, at the end of it, I remember thinking that, I feel like if I was in a school setting, that these people could, be my friends now. And, we did such a great job working together. So I feel like if I had that feeling, then I think other students would have that feeling as well.
And maker projects in general create lots of opportunities for this. I had a similar feeling to Jill, but it reminds me of this. I went to GR Makers, which is a larger maker organization based in Grand Rapids. If you're ever out west, they're very welcoming and happy to have people come by and check out what they're doing. But one of the activities they're engaged in right now is they had two different artists with ideas for art prize projects. So if you're familiar with the large art prize yearly art competition event in Grand Rapids, it's huge. There are thousands of different art installations, and the winner gets some cash prize. But a lot of them are incorporating technology, and they're on a large scale and just very cool. Well, a couple different artists realized they didn't have all of the technical capabilities to carry out the art project that they had envisioned. So they took them to the Makerspace, and the Makerspace allowed them to prototype their ideas and connect with the different skill sets that they didn't personally have to realize their vision. And the whole prototyping process was instrumental in helping them shape and find a feasible and very cool idea. So I think they had donated something like 150,000 LEDs I don't know where they came from, but they had these 150,000 LEDs, so it's basically this big collaboration. How can we make something awesome using this? And they pulled together, electrical engineers, artists, people that just help connect everybody. And I think Makerspaces and the maker movement in general is kind of uniquely aligned with the principles of connecting different skill sets together for something larger. And so it naturally provides for that social environment that Amanda and Jill and Michelle have been talking about. So I just wanted to mention that as another example.
Parents for that. That was absolutely terrific. We've just got one more slide to share, and that's our resources share. We have lots of resources for you to see, to explore, project ideas. We're very happy now to take additional questions. If there are other comments that you'd like to make, that would be great, but otherwise we're at the end of our session today.
If there are no more questions, and Eve, I just wanted to put this out there that I think me and the other presenters, but I can only really speak for myself, I'm genuinely excited about these possibilities. So if you're an educator and you have a question or you want to follow up on this and learn a little bit more, definitely check out the resources. But feel free to use the contact information. The MAET program has a really vibrant kind of Twitter community, so if you have a question, put something out there, or put something out there via email, and we're really happy to follow up with you. Because it's very exciting and I think really great direction that education can head in.
I'm just going to find a link for Michael so that he can have the how-to. The human drum kit experience that our students put together. I just have to go out and find a blog link. So for other questions, Jill and Terrence, maybe you can address them as I'm looking.
With that is, seems like you guys are done with your presentation formally, but I want to leave the chat room open for you to continue to put links in there and resources. Those of you who are watching, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your participation, and feel free to keep asking questions in the chat room. We'll keep it open until the last person leaves. And I just want to point out to you, I put big, large chunks of block in there in the chat room, and that's because I want you to know some of the things that are coming up. I think this crowd might be very interested in our next webcast on Spartans Without Borders, which is it's a new initiative that offers service opportunities to MSU alumni, faculty, staff, and others in the Spartan community around the world. So we're talking about collaboration. I think that could be some really fun opportunities as well as very productive. So, and that's what we're trying to do here in the Alumni Association. We're trying to bring Spartans together to collaborate, to bring up new ideas, to make the world a better place. And we'd love to hear from you. What are the topics that you want to hear from us about? Who do you think we should be engaging? What is it that you want us to do to help you to live a more enriching life? And so you can see over in our chat, I put up some of the upcoming webcast topics that we have coming up. Again, next week, or the next one that's coming up is August 14th on Spartans Without Borders. And I'd like to thank so much our presenters, Michelle, Terrence, Jill, and Amanda, for joining us today. Thank you so much for the information. This was so interesting. I think I have a million ideas swirling around my head, and I'm not even an educator. So I hope those of you who are listening that are teachers really got a lot out of this. And again, please get back with our presenters if you have questions. Feel free to get back with the Alumni Association. We'd love to hear from you about what we can do to help you. With that, we will end our audio presentation, and we will leave the chat room open for you. Thank you so much, and go green.